Yes, I can see you. 'Cause every girl here wanna be you. Oh, she's a diva. I feel the same and I wanna meet her. They say she low down. It's just a room and I don't believe.
Good morning, Germany. Today we're going to talk about the Berlin Wall. Until 1961, East German citizens were allowed to travel to West Berlin. The wall was erected in 1961 because more than 2.6 million East Germans escaped to West Berlin, or West Germany, from 1949 to 1961. The Berlin Wall was the physical division between West Berlin and East Germany. However, it was also the symbolic boundary between democracy and communism during the Cold War. In East Germany, a communist system was established and many people had to suffer under repressions of the Communist Party. This is why many East Germans wanted to flee to the West. Gadsden, do you have anything you want to add on this point?
Oh yes, thanks Mike. Okay, so the Berlin Wall was erected in the dead of night and for 28 years kept East Germans from fleeing to the West. Although an eventual reunification of Germany had been intended, the new relationship between Allied powers turned Germany into a West versus East, democracy versus communism. Just past midnight on the night of August 12, 13, 1961, trucks with soldiers and construction workers rumbled through East Berlin. These crews began tearing up streets that entered into West Berlin, dug holes to put up concrete posts, and strung barbed wire all across the border between East and West Berlin. Telephone wires between East and West Berlin were also cut.
Thanks for that enlightening information, Gadsden. Now back to the story. Berliners were shocked when they woke up that morning. What had once been a very fluid border was now rigid. No longer could East Berliners cross the border for operas, plays, soccer games, etc. No longer could the approximately 60,000 commuters head to West Berlin for well-paying jobs. No longer could families, friends, and lovers cross the border to meet their loved ones. Whichever side of the border one went to sleep on during the night of August 12th, they were stuck on that side for decades. The Berlin Wall stretches over 100 miles. It ran not only through the center of Berlin, but also wrapped around West Berlin, entirely cutting West Berlin off from the rest of East Germany. On the evening of November 9, 1989, an announcement made by East German government official Gunther Starobatsky stated, "Permanent resolutions can be done through all border checkpoints between the East German and to the West Germany." Now back to you, SF.
Thanks. Now, moving on. People were shocked at the fact that borders were really open. East Germans tentatively approached the border and indeed found that the border guards were letting people cross. Some began chipping at the Berlin Wall with hammers and chisels. There's a huge celebration along the Berlin Wall, with people hugging, kissing, singing, cheering, and crying. Now back to you, Hassan.
Thank you, SF. The Berlin Wall was eventually chipped away into smaller pieces. The pieces have become collectibles and are now stored in both homes and museums. The Berlin Wall was taken down on November 8, 1989. After the Berlin Wall came down, East and West Germany reunified into a single German state on October 3, 1990. Dunkel.
Now we'll talk about West Germany and East Germany's reaction to the building of the Berlin Wall. West Berliners demonstrated against the wall, led by Mayor Michael Abbott, who strongly criticized the U.S. for failing to respond. After criticism of the West Berliners, John F. Kennedy had acknowledged in a speech on July 25, 1961, that the U.S. could only hope to defend the West Berliners and West Germans. Indeed, a few months after the barbed wire was erected, the U.S. government informed the Soviet government that it accepted the wall as a fact of international life, and would not challenge it by force. Now, East Germany. The East German government claimed the wall was an anti-fascist protective rampart, intended to dissuade aggression from the West. The border was only closed for citizens of East Germany traveling to the West, but not for residents of West Berlin traveling to the East. There was a Negative effects during the building of the wall. The construction of the wall had caused considerable hardships for families divided by it, and the view that the wall was mainly a means of preventing the citizens of East Germany from fleeing to the West was widely accepted. However, it changed to a positive effect. The opening of the Berlin Wall was preceded by a series of momentous events in East Germany. They included the removal of the country's hardline communist leader, Erich Honecker, and the resignation of the entire cabinet. As well, it was the end of the communist system. East Germany's new leader, Egon Krenz, called for free democratic elections. But it was not enough to turn the tide, and once the Berlin Wall was breached, East Germany was disintegrated. On October 3rd, 1990, the two Germanys merged to form a new united country. Long-term effects of the Berlin Wall falling. Consumers suddenly had access to goods and services that hadn't been available before. For the first time in decades, entrepreneurs were able to start their own companies. Along with these economic changes, in most countries came elections and the potential for democracy. U.S.-Soviet relations. On the 750th anniversary of Berlin, Ronald Reagan challenged Mikhail Gorbachev, the General Secretary of the Soviet Union, to take down the Berlin Wall. Reagan thought that this would increase freedom in the East. Ronald Reagan's sincerity and power really sent a message to the Soviet Union, which they agreed on after the wall fell. The relations between the two countries strengthened.
They say she needs to slow down. The baddest thing around town. She's nothing like a girl you've ever seen before. Nothing you can compare to your neighborhood.